You pick up a bag of rice you've bought a dozen times before. Last month it was $12. Today it's $16. Nothing about it looks different. Same brand, same shelf, same store. But somehow it's more expensive. And the strange part is, you don't even question it, because you've already seen the news. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively shut down. Oil is climbing past $120 a barrel. Ships are being rerouted across the globe. So you just stand there for a second, sigh, and think, yeah, I guess this makes sense. You tap your card and walk out. But here's the question most people never ask. Did that specific bag of rice actually get more expensive, or did someone just realize you were ready to accept a higher price? We usually think price increases are simple. Costs go up, so businesses raise prices. That's the story we've been told, and most of the time we accept it without digging deeper. But there's another layer to this that's a lot less obvious and a lot more important for your wallet. It's not just about cost, it's about permission. Think about what happens when the world feels uncertain. You hear about conflict, supply chain disruptions, energy shortages. You don't know every detail, but you feel the impact before you even see it in your daily life. You start preparing mentally. You expect things to get more expensive. You brace yourself. And that shift in expectation quietly changes how you react to prices. Because businesses aren't just watching what things cost them, they're watching what you're willing to accept. The moment your expectations rise, their pricing power rises with it. At that point, they're not just selling you a product, they're selling you a story. A story that says, everything is unstable right now. Of course, this costs more. And most of the time, we don't question that story. We just nod along and pay. The clearest place you can see this happening is at the gas station. You've probably experienced it. One headline about tension in the Middle East, one disrupted shipment, and suddenly prices jump overnight. 10 cents, 15 cents, sometimes more. It feels immediate, almost automatic. But then something interesting happens when things calm down. Prices don't fall the same way. They don't drop overnight. They don't correct themselves quickly. They drift down slowly, 1 cent at a time. Sometimes they just stay where they are. This pattern is so common that economists gave it a name, the rockets and feathers effect. Prices shoot up like a rocket, but fall like a feather. And that gap in between is where expectations turn into profit. Because once you've accepted paying a higher price, there's no urgency to lower it again. If you've already adjusted to $4.50 a gallon, why rush to bring it back to $3.90? From a business perspective, there's no reason. And from a consumer perspective, we've already adapted. That's what makes this cycle so powerful. Right now, this effect is even stronger because global tension gives businesses something incredibly useful, a believable reason. Shipping disruptions are real, energy costs are rising, supply chains are under pressure. But here's where things get complicated. There's a difference between real cost increases and anticipated ones, and a lot of pricing today sits in that gray area. Take something like groceries. Many of the items you see on shelves today were produced, packaged, and shipped months ago. Their costs didn't suddenly change overnight, but their prices did. Why? Because businesses are pricing based on what's coming next, not just what already happened. They know future shipments might cost more, so instead of waiting, they adjust prices now, which means you're not just paying for current costs, you're paying for future risk. And sometimes that risk never fully materializes the way it was expected, but the higher price stays anyway. This leads to one of the most frustrating parts of the whole system. Prices go up quickly, but they almost never fully come back down. Once a new price is accepted, it becomes the baseline. Think about how many temporary price increases you've seen over the past few years. How many of them actually disappeared? Very few. Most of them quietly became permanent because from the market's perspective, your behavior already confirmed it. You paid, you adapted, you moved on. And in a world driven by data and algorithms, that signal matters. It tells businesses exactly where the new limit is. Here's the realization that changes how you see all of this. Not every price increase is driven by cost. A large part of what we experience, especially during uncertain times, is expectation. If the news tells you there's a shortage and you see prices go up, you connect those two things instantly. Even if they're not directly linked, even if the product in front of you hasn't been affected yet. That connection feels logical, so you don't question it, and that's where permission comes from. The context around the product becomes the justification for the price. Once that happens, resistance disappears. You don't need to argue with every price you see, but you do need to think differently. Start by asking a simple question. Is this price increase directly tied to a real cost, or is it riding the wave of expectation? That alone can change how you react. Another thing that helps is breaking automatic habits. If you always buy the same brand, you're more likely to accept its price changes without thinking. But the moment you compare, even briefly, you regain some control, because pricing power weakens when attention increases. And finally, pay attention to what happens after the headlines fade. When oil prices drop, when supply stabilizes, when the news quiets down, watch what happens in stores. If prices stay high while the situation improves, that tells you something. That's no longer about cost, that's about margin. We're living in a time where global tension doesn't just affect supply chains, it affects perception. And perception shapes price more than most people realize. But the moment you stop seeing price increases as automatic and start seeing them as decisions, everything shifts. You're no longer just reacting, you're observing. Next time you're standing in a store, looking at a price that feels higher than it should be, pause for a second. Think about what you've heard, what you've seen in the news, and how that might be shaping your reaction. Then ask yourself, is this cost or is this permission? Because that one question can quietly protect your wallet in ways most people never notice. Drop a comment below. What's something you've noticed getting more expensive lately that actually made you stop and think? Was it gas, groceries, something unexpected? For me, it was that same bag of rice, same store, same brand, just a new price that showed up right when the world got louder. If you want to keep spotting these patterns before they hit your wallet, hit subscribe. We're going to keep breaking this down, one everyday decision at a time. I will be back soon.